There's something about family gatherings that always seems to highlight the things we wish weren't so obvious. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all swirls around me, but somehow, it feels distant. We're all there, my family, gathered in the backyard on a warm summer evening. The scent of charcoal hangs in the air, mingling with the smoky tang of meat sizzling on the grill. Everyone's chatting, enjoying the night, but it feels as if I'm invisible in the background, watching it all unfold. Lily, my older sister, is the center of attention, as usual. I can hear her bright laugh ringing through the air, punctuated by the sounds of applause from the family members around her. She's telling another one of her stories, and, of course, everyone is hanging on to every word. It's easy for them to do. She's always been the one to steal the spotlight, effortlessly. Her energy fills the room in a way that makes everything else seem dulled by comparison. There's a magnetic pull to her, a presence that makes everyone smile when she's near. And then there's me. I'm the one standing on the edges, the one who's quieter, blending into the background, trying not to draw too much attention to myself. I don't mind being in the background, usually. But tonight, there's something about it that feels different. It's not just that I feel like I'm overshadowed by Lily, it's that it's always like this. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try to make my own mark, it's never enough to break through the noise of her brilliance. I try to smile, nod along to the conversations, but my mind keeps drifting back to how effortlessly she captivates everyone around her. She doesn't even try. That's the hardest part. The warmth of the summer evening should be comforting, but instead, it feels like an uncomfortable reminder of how little attention I get in comparison. The grill's heat seems to mirror my growing frustration, the crackle of the fire a constant reminder of how much I wish I could ignite something in my own life, something that would make people stop and notice me the way they notice her. The contrast between Lily and me feels more pronounced as the night goes on. The sounds of her voice, her laughter, even the way she gestures with her hands as she tells her stories, it all draws people in. I watch as my relatives look at her with admiration, their faces lit up by her energy. And here I am, caught in the quietness of my own thoughts, wondering how it feels to be seen that way. To be the one everyone turns to for a spark. There's no anger in my heart. Just a quiet, familiar ache. It's the kind of ache that comes with being the second option, the quieter one, the one who fades into the background while someone else is given all the attention. I try not to let it show, but sometimes it feels too heavy to bear, the weight of always being in someone else's shadow. And yet, I can't help but feel a flicker of something else, something that stirs within me as I watch her bask in the admiration of the crowd. It's not jealousy, not exactly. It's a longing for my own moment, a desire to step out from behind the curtain and into the light for just a second. But for now, I'm here, standing quietly in the corner of the yard, watching as Lily shines, wondering if one day, it will be my turn. When the world feels too loud, too bright, and too full of everyone but me, I find my escape in the quiet corners of the house. I retreat to my room, where the familiar smell of old paper and leather-bound books brings me comfort. Here, I am not overshadowed by Lily's sparkling energy, nor am I lost in the endless chatter that fills every family gathering. In this space, it's just me and the worlds that live between the pages. Books have always been my refuge, a place where I can disappear into lives and adventures far more thrilling than my own. There's a sense of peace that comes over me when I open the first page of a new book. The words seem to hold the promise of understanding, of belonging, in a way I can't seem to find anywhere else. It's funny, really, how something as simple as reading can make me feel more connected to myself than any conversation I've had with my family in years. The characters in my books, they don't see me as just someone in the background. They see me as a part of their world. I spend hours lost in my thoughts and the books that line my shelves. But it's not just the stories that offer me solace, it's the conversations I've had with Aunt Maggie. She's the one person in my family who truly seems to understand me. It's funny how out of all the faces in the crowd, Aunt Maggie's is the one that offers me real comfort. She's never made me feel small or overlooked. Instead, she's always encouraged me to embrace what makes me different, to value the quiet strength I hold within. Aunt Maggie has always been there for me, but it's in moments like this, when the weight of my family's favoritism towards Lily feels too much to bear, that her presence feels more like a lifeline. She's the one who's always told me that it's okay not to be the loudest person in the room. That there's beauty in being still, in observing the world rather than trying to claim it. For a while, I couldn't understand what she meant. But now, more than ever, I see it. While Lily is the one everyone adores, the one they flock to for her attention and charisma, Aunt Maggie sees something different in me. She doesn't want me to be like anyone else. She wants me to find my own voice, to be the person I was meant to be, without having to shout for attention. In a family that thrives on energy and performance, Aunt Maggie is my calm, my reminder that I don't need to compete for love. But sometimes, I can't shake the feeling of being left out, of being ignored in favor of Lily. That feeling lingers even when I'm in the quiet company of Aunt Maggie, or when I'm wrapped up in the pages of a book. Still, Aunt Maggie's words stay with me. Her support, the way she values me for who I am, not for what I can give the world, is something I hold on to when the rest of the world seems too much. In the small moments I share with her, I find the strength to keep moving forward, to keep believing that maybe one day, I'll find my place in this family. A place where I don't have to hide behind the pages of a book to feel seen. Until then, Aunt Maggie will be my constant, my mentor, my guide, and the one who helps me believe in myself, even when it feels like the world is cheering for someone else. The tension had been building for weeks, and I could feel it settling heavy in my chest. The way my parents brushed off my achievements, like they didn't matter or were somehow less impressive than Lily's, had been eating away at me. I had worked so hard, pouring hours into my studies, determined to make something of myself in a family that seemed to have no time for quiet, intellectual success. But every accolade, every award, felt like it just slid right past them, unnoticed. It was as though nothing I did could ever measure up. Then came that night. We were all gathered at the dinner table, and the conversation was typical, light, casual, the usual talk about Lily's performances, her social life, and the excitement around her next big event. As always, my accomplishments were an afterthought. But when I couldn't take it anymore, I blurted it out. "I've been working harder than any of you realize," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough to cut through the noise. "I've spent endless nights studying. I've earned these grades, this recognition, and it's like no one even notices." The room went quiet, and for a moment, I thought I'd gone too far. But my frustration bubbled over, and I couldn't stop myself. My gaze flicked to Lily, who was sitting there as if she didn't even understand what I was talking about. She didn't have to. She was already the star of the family. "That's not true, honey," my mom finally said, her voice so dismissive it made my heart ache. "We're just proud of Lily's gifts. You're different, Cameron. We don't need to push you." Her words stung like cold water, and I suddenly understood. This was the real reason why I felt invisible. It wasn't just that I was overshadowed, it was that, to them, I wasn't important enough to be noticed. The weight of that realization crushed me, but it also lit something inside me. I wasn't going to just sit back and accept this. I didn't need their approval, their attention, to prove my worth. That night, I decided to prove them all wrong. I didn't need a loud presence or constant applause to show that I was capable. What mattered most was that I believed in myself, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my parents, tell me what I could or couldn't do. I wasn't going to live in their shadow any longer. So, I doubled down. I buried myself even deeper in my studies, ignoring the distractions and dismissals. The pressure became unbearable at times, but I held on to my resolve. I didn't need their acknowledgement to succeed. I would prove my worth through my own actions. The day of the final exams, when my grades were announced, felt like the culmination of everything I had worked for. And when my name was called for top honors, I didn't wait for anyone to celebrate me. I already knew the truth. In the days that followed, there was no grand recognition from my parents, no celebration of my hard work. But I didn't care anymore. I had achieved something that mattered to me, something that validated my own belief in myself. I had done it without anyone's approval, and that victory was mine alone. At the end of it all, the triumph wasn't just about the grades, it was about my own perseverance. I had taken control of my own narrative. And that, more than anything else, was the greatest victory I could have ever imagined. I was sitting in Aunt Maggie's cozy living room one evening, nursing a cup of tea and letting the weight of the world press on my shoulders. It felt like I was living in a constant state of limbo, waiting for the world to notice me, to give me a chance to break free from the constraints my family had put around me. My dreams of college, my hope to forge my own path, felt so distant, almost unattainable. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment I had to fight for. But how could I do that when I had no financial support? I had no clue how to make it all happen. Aunt Maggie must have noticed the frustration in my eyes because, without missing a beat, she set her cup down on the table and looked me in the eye. Her soft voice broke through my thoughts, warm and steady. "Cameron, I know things haven't been easy, and I can see how much you've worked for this," she said. "You've got the drive, and that's something not everyone has. I don't want you to think you have to give up on your dreams because of money." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her correctly. She smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "I've been putting away a little something for years. It's not much, but it's enough to help you get started. If you really want to go to college, I'll give it to you." I froze, staring at her in disbelief. Her offer hung in the air, so simple yet so generous, and I could feel my heart start to race. It wasn't just the money, it was what that gesture meant. It meant someone, at last, believed in me. Aunt Maggie, who had never been a part of the mainstream excitement, the loud claps of approval that always surrounded Lily, had always seen me. She had always been there, steady and unspoken, believing in the quiet resilience I carried. I felt a lump form in my throat. "Aunt Maggie, I don't know what to say. You've already done so much for me." She shook her head gently. "You don't need to say anything, dear. I know how hard it's been, and I've watched you fight for yourself. That's all the reason I need to help you." In that moment, I realized just how much this woman had done for me without ever asking for anything in return. She had always been there when I needed a place to retreat, when I needed someone to hear me out. And now, she was giving me the opportunity to chase my dreams in a way that felt almost impossible only days before. My eyes welled up with tears, but I quickly wiped them away. It wasn't the time for weakness, not when Aunt Maggie had given me so much hope. "Thank you," I whispered, feeling a renewed sense of purpose well up inside me. "You have no idea what this means to me." And in that moment, something changed inside me. I was no longer just fighting for validation or attention from anyone else. I was fighting for my future, for the chance to stand tall and show the world what I was capable of. Aunt Maggie had given me a lifeline, a gift far beyond just money. She had given me a chance to prove myself. And now, there was nothing that could stop me. It all happened so quickly, I almost couldn't believe it. One minute, Lily was the star of the family, always getting the praise, always shining bright with her perfect grades, her dazzling smile, and the path that seemed destined for her. The next minute, it all crumbled. Lily dropped out of college. The reason? An unplanned pregnancy. It wasn't just shocking, it was a complete upheaval. Our entire family, so used to admiring her, suddenly turned their gaze elsewhere. I remember sitting at the kitchen table when Mom's voice cracked the tension. She was holding her phone, and the words seemed to hang heavy in the air. "Lily's pregnant," she said, as though it was some strange, incomprehensible truth she still couldn't fully digest. My heart sank. There was no happiness in this announcement, no celebration, just the weight of something irreversible. Lily, the golden child who had been the pride of everyone, now found herself facing a completely different reality. And the worst part was that I could see the way the family was reacting. They were so consumed by the shock of it all. Mom and Dad were devastated, and I could feel the shift in the air as they scrambled to figure out what to do. Lily, who had always had everything handed to her, now had nothing but questions and fears. It wasn't just the baby. It was everything that came with it, the unspoken judgment, the confusion, and the shame. For the first time, I wasn't the one left in the shadows. The spotlight was no longer on Lily and her perfect life, and suddenly, she wasn't the one everyone was looking up to. She wasn't the one getting praise. Instead, the family was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, trying to navigate this new, unexpected chapter. I couldn't lie to myself. There was a part of me that felt a twist of satisfaction, a sense of justice that Lily, the girl who had everything, was finally facing a challenge she couldn't simply charm her way through. I'd spent so long watching her glide through life with ease, feeling like the universe had always bent in her favor. Now, the tables had turned. The balance of power had shifted, and I could feel the weight of it in the way our family's attention had abruptly veered away from her perfection. But there was another part of me, a more vulnerable side, that couldn't help but feel sadness for her. It wasn't easy being in her shoes, either. The sudden pressure of responsibility, the uncertainty of what her future would look like, this wasn't the life she had planned. This was messy, uncharted territory, and it felt like everything she had worked for was slipping through her fingers. And so, as the family's focus shifted, I stood in the background, feeling a strange mix of emotions. It was like watching someone fall from grace while also mourning the loss of the dream we had all shared for her. Maybe it was a twist of fate that had pulled the rug from under Lily's feet, but I couldn't help but wonder, was this the moment where everything changed, for better or worse? The day I graduated felt like a dream. As I walked across that stage, everything I'd worked for, the late nights studying, the moments of doubt, the times I'd questioned whether I could even do this, vanished into the air. I did it. I had made it. But it wasn't just my success that made the day so special. It was the people who helped me get there, and none more so than Aunt Maggie. Through everything, she had been my anchor, the only one who truly saw me for who I was. When the rest of my family overlooked my quiet determination, she encouraged me. When I doubted my worth, she reminded me of my potential. Aunt Maggie wasn't just family, she was my guide, my mentor, and my biggest supporter. After the ceremony, I couldn't wait to see her. I wanted to share that moment with her, the woman who had made all the difference in my life. As soon as I found her in the crowd, I rushed over, tears welling up in my eyes. I did it, Aunt Maggie! We did it, I said, unable to hold back the flood of emotions. Her smile, warm, knowing, and filled with pride, was all I needed to feel like everything I had struggled through was worth it. She didn't need to say anything. I could see it in her eyes. She believed in me, and now, I had proved her right. It wasn't long before my next big step came, landing a prestigious job at a firm that had always felt so out of reach. I could hardly believe it when they offered me the position. I had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was real, it felt surreal. There was so much to be grateful for. But the first thing on my mind was how I could show Aunt Maggie just how much her love and support meant to me. I decided to get her something that would make her life a little easier. I bought her a smartphone, a simple one, nothing too fancy, but something that would let her stay connected with me, with the world. I knew she wasn't really into technology, but I also knew how much it would mean to her to be a part of my life in this way. It wasn't just about the phone, it was about showing her that she had a place in my world, a place that was never going to fade, no matter where life took me. When I handed it to her, she looked at me with a mixture of surprise and confusion. "What's this, darling?" she asked, her brow furrowed in that familiar, sweet way she always did when faced with something new. I grinned. "Aunt Maggie, this is your new smartphone. I'm going to teach you how to use it, and you're going to join the world of social media." I could already picture her trying to figure out how to send a text, but the thought of sharing my life with her, of seeing her laugh at the things I posted, of having her watch my journey unfold in real time, filled me with warmth. The next few days were filled with laughter as I walked her through the basics of texting, sending photos, and navigating social media. Watching her discover this new world, her amazement at being able to communicate with me so easily, was more fulfilling than I had imagined. It was simple, yet it was everything. In that moment, I realized just how far I had come. I was no longer the quiet girl sitting in the shadows. I was someone who had succeeded on her own terms, someone who had learned the power of resilience. And through it all, I had found someone who believed in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself. As I looked at Aunt Maggie, her face lit up by the glow of the smartphone in her hands, I knew this was the beginning of something even bigger. And I felt a deep, unshakable gratitude for everything she had given me. I had finally found my place in the world, and it was with her, by my side. As the months went by, life began to settle into a rhythm. My job at the firm was everything I'd hoped for, and I had a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I'd been missing all along. But what struck me the most, what filled me with a quiet pride, was how much I had changed, how much we had changed. Aunt Maggie, who had once been the sole anchor in my world, had become an integral part of my new life. One afternoon, as I scrolled through my social media feed, I stumbled upon something that made me pause. It was one of Aunt Maggie's posts, a video she had taken, the camera focused on her smiling face. She was sitting in her cozy living room, her hands gently holding the phone I'd gifted her. The caption read, "Look at my darling girl, she made it. So proud of you, Cameron. Keep shining." The video was simple, just Aunt Maggie, with her usual warmth and sincerity, speaking directly to the camera. But it spoke volumes. The love and pride in her voice were palpable, and as I watched, I felt a lump form in my throat. Here she was, celebrating my achievements in her own way, through the very technology one had once thought would be too overwhelming for her. It was a testament to how much she had embraced me, and my world, just as I had done for her. I felt a smile tug at my lips as I shared the post with my friends. In that moment, I realized just how far I had come. It wasn't just about my success in my career or the triumph of proving myself to my family. It was about finding peace with who I was, accepting that I was worthy of success, of love, and of happiness. Aunt Maggie had always known that. She had always believed in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself. And now, I could see it in her eyes every time she posted a video or shared a photo. Her joy for me was uncontainable. She had found a way to be a part of my world, just as I had found a way to honor her place in my heart. Her posts became a reflection of not just my journey, but of how far we had both come. With every new update, there was something new, whether it was a picture of her knitting or a video of us laughing together at family gatherings. It was as if she was documenting our shared story, reminding me every day that our connection wasn't just a fleeting thing. It was something that would last, that would grow, and that would continue to shape my life in ways I could never have predicted. And in the end, As I sat back and looked at all that had happened, the trials, the triumphs, the moments of doubt, and the moments of clarity, I realized that the most important thing was not the success itself, but the people who had been there along the way. Aunt Maggie had helped me see that. She had helped me understand that true contentment came not from achieving everything on my own, but from knowing that the ones who truly care are there to support and celebrate every step of the journey. As I closed the app and put my phone down, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead was bright, and I was finally ready to walk it, with Aunt Maggie by my side, as we had always been. The story of our bond, our growth, and our shared victories, small and large, had come full circle. And as I moved forward, I knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning.